Hey, how's it going guys, Kris here, and today we're going to be checking out another Battlefield 5 weapon that came along in the War in the Pacific update. In this guide I'll be honing in on the Jungle Carbine for the Medic class, going over all of its stats, history and specializations, and letting you know exactly how it fits into the game. So the Jungle Carbine, formerly known as the Rifle No. 5 Mark I, basically derived from an already existing firearm, the Lee Enfield No. 4 Mark I. Only this newer version was modified to be more compatible within those confined jungle environments. As you'd typically expect from a carbine model, this weapon had a compact design with a shorter barrel than the original. But apart from that, there isn't really a hell of a lot to differentiate the two guns, with the Jungle Carbine being pretty much the same in most aspects. It was even chambered to fire the same 303 British round, though of course by chopping off a bit of that barrel, this would have reduced the gun's effective range, but would have also made it somewhat lighter and more manoeuvrable. More ideal for jungle warfare, you could say, as a compact weapon would have made those long marches through the forests much more comfortable, and sightlines are often broken by all the trees and mountains, with a lot of enemy encounters taking place within shorter ranges. Although it was often referred to as the Jungle Carbine, often associated with combat in the Far East, the gun was initially designed to be used by paratroopers and airborne forces in Europe, with the weapon being introduced in March 1944. It only saw limited use in the Second World War, and production was stopped in 1947, because it was deemed to be unsuitable for general issue due to design flaws which affected the gun's accuracy. The Jungle Carbine also suffered from some nasty recoil, due to that power of the 303 cartridge, so this would have been another reason that made it unfavourable to use. It might not have had a very long service life, despite originally being envisioned to be the successor of the Lee Enfield No. 4 line, though it still saw use by special forces in the several years following World War II, being in the hands of troops during both the Malayan Emergency and the Korean War. Now let's move over to those stats. Because the Jungle Carbine uses that fairly powerful 303 round, this gives the gun some pretty tasty damage values. Maybe not quite as high as the Lee Enfield No. 4 that inspired it, but still more than the average medic bolt action carbine nevertheless. The weapon deals a maximum of 56 damage and a minimum damage of 40, which is exactly the same as the Tromboncino, but its damage drop-off ranges are a little bit different. The Jungle Carbine can retain its maximum damage slightly better, as it's not going to start dropping off till 75 meters, basically giving it a 25 meter range advantage, allowing it to kill targets in just 2 bullets up to 100 meters. The Tromboncino drops to a 3 bullet kill at 75 meters. So despite the maximum and minimum damage values essentially being the same, the Jungle Carbine is going to hit a little bit harder further away, allowing it to kill in one less shot between 75 and 100 meters. This also means that you can pull off further one-hit kill headshots too. So this extra stopping power at range makes the Jungle Carbine a pretty strong choice for sniping, as it's even capable of challenging recon players and giving them a hard time. The gun's 84 RPM fire rate isn't exactly the best, being a little bit slower than average, and so this might make it slightly less competitive within closer ranges where you're going to be more vulnerable to those faster firing fully automatics. Though just like with both the Commando Carbine and the Tromboncino, this fire rate can be ramped up a bit to help improve those kill times by using the machine bolt spec. This will take the fire rate up to about 95 RPM, which isn't a drastic difference, but it could still make the gun feel slightly more effective when firing those follow-up shots, especially handy for finishing off enemies quickly, or accounting for a bullet that strays off target as you fire away. Taking a look at those recoil stats next, we can see that the Jungle Carbine follows the typical trend of having a 0 horizontal recoil value, meaning it's going to be a very accurate weapon, which is only really going to be affected by that upwards kick. That upwards kick being the vertical recoil, which is actually quite high when you compare it to the other bolt action carbines, having a value of 2.8, which I guess reflects on the real life version of the gun, which was known to be fairly unstable when firing. This is definitely higher than normal, but it doesn't pose too many problems providing you pace your shots out and account for this recoil by shooting slower when dealing with an enemy over a longer range. Though if someone's closer by, then you should get along fine by spamming the trigger to put them down as quickly as you can, as this recoil shouldn't really get in the way too much within close quarters. Something that's going to boost the Jungle Carbine's accuracy over range is the fact that it's got a decent bullet speed, having the muzzle velocity of 500 meters per second, the same as the Tromboncino. and this speed can be increased even more with the high velocity bullet specialization, taking it up to 570 meters per second, which is pretty high compared to the others. This will complement that stronger damage over distance quite nicely, making it feel easier to use over mid to long ranges. And it's worth pointing out that the weapon also has a lower amount of bullet drag too, which is also going to be lowered even more with high velocity bullets. So those shots will be able to retain a higher speed the longer they travel, thus making the weapon feel even easier to use against players running around further away. So with the Jungle Carbine pretty much being related to the Lee Enfield No. 4, it's going to have the very same ammo capacity of 10 rounds, which can be stored inside that internal magazine using two 5-round stripper clips. This is a pretty decent amount of ammo considering the weapon's power, as you'll be able to take down up to 5 enemies with full health within the range of 100 meters, and even more with headshots, which is quite impressive, especially for a medic weapon. The gun carries 4 more bullets than the Tromboncino, and 2 more than the Commando Carbine, without extended mags. So it's pretty capable of getting you out of an awkward situation when you're surrounded, despite it being less suited for close quarter combat, still making it somewhat reliable. Ammo capacity isn't the only thing that the Jungle Carbine shares with the Recon class's Lee Enfield No. 4, because it's actually got the exact same reload times too. To reload 1 to 9 bullets, it can take anywhere between 3 to 6.28 seconds, and to perform a full 10 round reload with 2 clips, well, that's going to take about 5.64 seconds. These times aren't exactly very fast compared to the other bolt action carbines, with the Tromboncino using M-block clips, which are slightly quicker and more consistent, and the Commando Carbine using detachable magazines, also generally quicker and more consistent too. So although the gun holds a fair amount of shots, it's going to take a bit more time than average to replenish your reserves and get the gun fully loaded up again, limiting its use for aggressive play by leaving you a bit more vulnerable in between reloading. Thankfully, you can speed up those times a bit by applying the quick reload spec, so it's not all bad news. But the Jungle Carbine will still generally take a tad longer than the others, even with that specialization. Though I guess the extra bullets gained by having a larger magazine definitely help to make this less of an issue. Moving on to those specializations now. At the top, you've got the option to equip high velocity bullets or quick aim. Quick aim is going to be pretty useful with offensive playstyles closer to the action, and because the gun already has a fairly decent muzzle velocity, this might make it a more viable choice for a lot of players. Though I normally like to run with high velocity bullets, just to make it easier to leave moving targets further away, and try and take advantage of that higher mid to long range damage, basically strengthening one of the best aspects of the gun. As for the middle section of the spec tree, we can find the slings and swivel option on the left with the machine bolt spec, and on the right we've got the custom and light and stock options, improving accuracy while moving along with maneuverability. Because the Jungle Carbine isn't quite as aggressive as a few of the other guns, which would probably make better use of those custom and light and stocks to strafe around and improve precision whilst doing so, I generally prefer upping the fire rate and cutting down deploy times by running down the left side of the spec tree. When you run out of those 10 bullets, it can often take a tad longer to reload, which makes your sidearm much more useful in situations where you've been caught out by surprise. Hence why slings and swivels is going to be a nice thing to have equipped. And having a fire rate boost is going to improve the weapon's effectiveness over pretty much all ranges by cutting down the time to kill, which is always a nice bonus. Last but not least, at the bottom we can find the quick reload spec and enhanced grips to improve hip fire spread. Because the Jungle Carbine's reloads can sometimes take a fair bit of time to perform, the quick reload spec is my go-to choice here, as it will make the gun feel more dependable and allow you to get back into the action a bit quicker. Enhanced grips might be handy in CQC, but the faster reloads will probably seem more useful for most players, especially if you play into the weapon's main strengths. So anyway, in conclusion, the Jungle Carbine is a very powerful and very effective medic weapon that specialises in taking down opponents over medium distances. It's pretty good at retaining its damage over range, and can often kill players further away in less bullets, though its fire rate isn't quite as snappy, so this might hinder the gun's capabilities for close quarter combat, making it slightly less useful within shorter sight lines, where a lot of the other weapons in the game are going to kill quicker and generally be superior. The gun's got a pretty bouncy recoil pattern too, kicking upwards a bit more than normal, so this could make it slightly harder to use, forcing you to slow down your fire in order to reacquire your target after every shot. Although it's not exactly designed to be used too aggressively, the Jungle Carbine does have a fairly generous ammo capacity, with it sharing the same reload, clips and bullets with the Recon class's Lee Enfield No. 4. So this will allow you to keep on going for a little bit longer, and potentially help you get out of a sticky situation when you're surrounded by the enemy team. This larger ammo count should also make missed shots a little bit more forgiving. Though should that magazine run dry or get low on rounds, well, you'll be forced to perform a pretty lengthy reload, making you very vulnerable as you scramble to cover to avoid incoming shots. The weapon might hold more bullets than average, but it's still best not to get into a false sense of security. The Jungle Carbine excels more so against players over those late mid-ranges, where you can fully utilise that extra power over distance whilst taking advantage of its decent bullet speed, which is typically higher than the average carbine. And providing you don't get too ballsy and get too close to the action, it can be a great weapon for defending against oncoming targets, and can even challenge snipers quite comfortably too, often coming out on top. So that's it for another weapon guide, folks. Hope you enjoyed the video and learned a few things along the way. Thumbs up if you did, and subscribe and hit that notification bell to be the first to see new content coming soon. Thanks for watching, and I'll be seeing you in the next episode.